And today we will continue our conversation on Turkish elections. As you may recall, last week we had a panel discussing the potential impacts of Turkish elections for Turkey, for the region as well. We discussed the main dynamics in the election, the most significant factors that determine the voter preferences in Turkish election. And today we will continue our discussion, and we have two distinguished guests with us, Burhanettin Duran and İlnur Çelik. Both of them are serving in the Foreign Policy and Security Committee in Turkish presidency. And Burhanettin Duran is also the general coordinator of SETA, and İlnur Çelik is a veteran journalist. Let's start with you, Professor Duran. Tell us, it has been a week since we had this conversation for the last time. What did change? What kind of changes we experienced? And do you think there are any additional factors that contribute to determine the voter preferences in the elections?
Thank you, Kılıç. Well, of course, there are some continuities, but at the same time, there are some changes to the electoral process in Turkey. As we mentioned before, this is a historical elections that will decide the future of Turkey in the next 5 years. And the direction of Turkey in terms of security, foreign policy, and domestic policy, this election is very important in the eyes of Turkish, not only in the eyes of Turkish public opinion, but also in the regional and even global circles. So after a week, there is a development in this candidacy process. Muharrem İnce, one candidate for presidency, withdrew from the process. And this was so much discussed, so much debated because Ince argued that because of the cassette issues, that's a provocation and a compass against him by FETÖ and PKK, he will not run for the presidency. At the same time, that means that we have three candidates: President Erdogan, Kilicdaroglu, and Sinan Ogan. And Sinan Ogan is well known for his nationalist constituency, and it seems that polls are telling us that Ogan's nationalist votes are on the rise. Even some pollsters tell that this may reach to 5 or 6%. It means that the first round, we will not have the elected president. That it means that there will be second term. But at the same
second round.
Sorry?
Second round.
Yeah, second round. It means that there will be second round, but at the same time, it will not be a surprise if in the first round, my expectation is that President Erdogan will be re-elected. So this is the developments regarding the candidacy issue. But at the same time, there are a rise of polemics and criticism among politicians, among candidates, and they are making rallies and TV speeches and social media videos, and these are full of economic promises, and at the same time some of their ideas regarding foreign policy issues. And recently Kilicdaroglu made a claim that Russia is meddling into Turkish elections, and that was another subject to be discussed after Ince's withdrawal from candidacy. But, you know, there are 2 days left to these critical elections, and all of the parties are claiming that the field, the electorals are in favor of their candidacy, and they are getting a huge support from the people. But nevertheless, from an observative, from an objective position, we can say that this competition will continue until the ballot boxes speak. So we will see the real result, and that will be the achievement of Turkish democracy at the night of May 14 and the following morning. So this is a very historical election, and in terms of foreign policy, Kilicdaroglu, I should add this, Kilicdaroglu is clarifying his position that he will follow much more pro-Western policy by criticizing Russia, but still it's a combination of somehow nationalist, somehow pro-Western, and somehow ambiguous foreign policy. That's a kind of catch-all, all ideological positions, even including to be a claim of nationalist, anti-imperialist, pro-Western, and even religious at the same time. So this kind of propaganda and the domestic discussions were the agenda of this process.
Professor Duran, we will come back to foreign policy, and we will continue to discuss the parliamentary majority, which is another important, because together with the presidential elections, there is parliamentary elections, and parliamentary majority would be also a significant issue in this election. And as we approach to the election, actually on Sunday, we actually see an inflation of polls on social media. There are so many polls that I stopped following most of them. There are rivalry of polls, and we will see in the election night which of those are more accurate than others. And Professor Mr. Çevik, tell us your perspective about the elections. You have been following Turkish elections for the last, correct me if I'm wrong, 40 years, 30 years?
50
years, okay, 50 years. So tell us what is different in this election, because both opposition and the government is actually, governing party is actually saying that this is an historic election. This is an election that doesn't look like any other election. Pollsters and analyzers are also saying that this is one of the most competitive elections that has been taking place in Turkey, probably for the last 25, 30 years. Tell us what is so different in this election.
Well, what is different in these elections is that for the first time ever in Turkish history, a party or a president, a leader who has been serving in Turkey for the past 20 years is now competing again. No leader in Turkey, none ever, has lasted 20 years. His terms has been cut down by coups or all kinds of interference, or because of coalitions, they lost votes and they lost power. But this time, we have had a kind of stability for 20 years, and that has, of course, been a plus and a negative aspect for the ruling party. Why? Because in 20 years, the party erodes. There's all kinds of everything. But in 20 years, because of the stability, the country expands, it is modernized. I mean, in 2002, if you had told me that Turkey is going to be so modern, even the lackluster townships will be so modernized, they will be out of this world, I'd say you're joking, because I've served with Özal, I've served with Demirel, I've served with Erbakan. I know the capacity of the country, and it took Erdogan and his team of people to really lift Turkey above everything else. So this election is whether the Turkish people want this continuing stability, but with question marks, because many people feel that there are shortcomings of the presidential system, which can be corrected, which can be reformed. Should we go along with this, or should we make some changes? But the funny thing is, the people who are asking for the changes are not really the people who can deliver. You see 6 parties coming together, trying to form some kind of a coalition, and a rather lackluster coalition, because you don't have ministers from each party in the cabinet. You have 6 vice presidents. I mean, when you tell this to an American or somebody else, they say, what? 6 vice presidents? Where's the cabinet? It's rather awkward. And this cannot bring the so-called change that these people want. So you have this kind of a system. But what is really shocking for me is, for the first time in my journalistic career and my political experiences, this is the first time that there's so much outside interference in Turkish politics. Some people are trying to manipulate not only the polls, but the election outcome from the West. I mean, look, I have never seen so much press coverage against the ruling party in the past. Yes, some people have lambasted us with Demirel. Some people hated our Erbakan administration, but they wrote about it. They opposed us and so on. But now there's a chorus of Western press saying Erdogan should go. But they are doing a fine job for all of us who believe in Erdogan, because what they're doing is they are uniting the people behind Erdogan, because the Turkish people do not like being dictated. They do not like outside pressures from anyone telling them what to do. The Turkish people say, my vote is my vote, I'll go and give it. And on the night of 14th, the verdict is out, this way or that way. But I reject being told what to do. And this is a negative aspect, because in 1982, as you remember, Özal was the candidate for prime minister, and his party was running the show. After the coup, only 3 parties were allowed to enter the elections: the Motherland Party and 2 parties established by the military coup. And the coup leader, Kenan Evren, just the night before the elections, went up to the Turkish people and said, I want you to vote for the parties that we set up. The Turkish people the next day went and voted for Özal in a landslide. And Özal became prime minister despite the military. Now, this is a similar situation. The military is not there, but there is the foreign powers trying to install a new government in Turkey to replace Erdogan. Now, they don't know the Turkish people. The way they're going on about it is rather awkward. There's a huge bias against the ruling party. So when we look at the picture, yes, everybody, even Erdogan, feels that after the elections, some kind of reformation is needed in the system as well, and in many other fields. But we have established an excellent foreign policy here. And our Security and Foreign Relations Board has done an excellent job. The Turkish Foreign Ministry and all the related agencies and state offices have done an excellent job, and they've lifted Turkey into a power in its region to be reckoned with. And this is our strong part. And this is the election where everybody will decide whether Turkey is going to be, will continue this kind of exclusive foreign policy, or whether it will go back to the old days when we were dictated all our policies by Western powers, and we just said, yes, sir. So the yes, sir period, I think, for the Turkish people has also ended. Nobody wants in Turkey to be yes, sirs. So this is the difference, I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Çevik. And just to remind that this is the, I think, 15th election, actually. Turkey had been through 14 elections in the last 20 years. And AK Party won so far 3 referendums, 5 general elections, 4 local elections, and 2 presidential elections.
And Kilicdaroglu lost 7 elections.
And Kilicdaroglu lost 7 elections. And in this election, the polls, actually, we were talking about the polls. As I told you, there is the rivalry of polls, and the presidential election is, in most of these polls, is within the margin of error, actually.
Yes.
But
yes.
There is a consensus among all pollsters that AK Party will be the first party still, and according to most of those polls, the vote of the AK Party will be something between 37 and 42, depending on the poll. So it is an impressive record. And Professor Duran, let's get back to you and tell us about the parliamentary elections, and what do you expect in these elections, and what do you think the role of the parliament will be in the next term?
Well, this time, the results of the parliamentary elections will be very effective on the future of the second round, if there will be a second round. Why? Because some voters are inclined to pragmatism, and some of them are considering the candidates on the basis of ideological preferences. And the third candidate, Sinan Ogan's voters are mostly nationalist. And in the second term, they will look at not just two candidates, but also the configuration of the parliament. Let's think of some scenarios. If the results are not giving majority to People's Alliance or Nations Alliance, it means that HDP, Green Party, Green Left Party, will be in a key position. So it means that this party, this Kurdish nationalist leftist party, will have much more importance in the parliamentary affairs. So this even will be a very effective, influential issue. And at the same time, we expect that at least 14 parties will be in the parliament. And there are 4 alliances competing for the deputies. And also, we expect that so much colors of ideologies will be present in the new parliament, from hardliners of Turkish nationalism to pan-Kurdish nationalists and leftists. So in the new parliament, this ideological panorama and spectrum will be a very important result. And also the possible influence of HDP will have a much more an agenda of nationalism to be expected. So, but in any way, if in the first round, the new president elected, and then what would be the parliament? So if Kilicdaroglu elected and also Nations Alliance with HDP got the majority, then Turkey's direction, Turkey's policies and political environment would be totally different. if there is a balance between one side wins presidency and another side wins the majority of the parliament, it is something else. So we have many uncertainties. Even there are 2 days to the election, and because of the polls, and even these polls, as you said before, it's a war of polls. I mean, if you follow social media in Turkey now, you will see many polls, and which are competing and telling us that President Erdogan will win, or on the contrary, Kilicdaroglu will win. So in such a uncertainty, Turkish voters are going to the ballot boxes to, of course, reveal their will. And I hope that which side wins, it doesn't matter, Turkish democracy will be triumphant.
Mr. Çevik, your perspective about the parliamentary elections, you mentioned the presidential election aspect of it. What do you expect from the parliamentary elections?
Well, it's going to be a kind of mumbo jumbo in that parliament. It's not going to be a stable parliament. It is clear that the votes will be split. AK Party will remain the #1 party, but it will not have a majority. Maybe together with the nationalist movement party, AK Party may not again have a majority. And that will be a very interesting situation, because in every vote, and this is important because until now, the government was relying on the parliamentary majority that it had in passing crucial legislation. And those crucial legislation is usually dealing with the expenditures of the state, the budget. For instance, if you want to increase taxes, you have to go to the parliament and you have to pass a law. If you want to give extra money to people, you pass a law. If you want monetary regulations, you pass a law. So to do that and to pass crucial laws on human rights and various issues, civil code and so on and so forth, and reformation of the legal system, you need a kind of consensus in the parliament. And maybe it's good for Turkish democracy if you have civilized people talking civilized issues to each other. It's fine. The AK Party could find new allies in the parliament for itself to pass vital legislation, like the Good Party could join AK Party people. You could have that kind of a parliament, provided there is civilized dialogue in the parliament and not backbiting and everybody at each other's throats. If people mean well, there's no problem. But if people are trying to sabotage the Turkish system within the parliamentary system, that is going to be really a serious problem. So it depends on how the parties will start seeing reconciliation in the parliament, how they approach reconciliation in the parliament. AK Party has always been reconciliatory all the time. I've seen them in the past. That's why they stayed in power for 20 years, for God's sake. But I think if people mean well, if there's goodwill, there will be no problem. But the elections have shown to us that there is a kind of lack of goodwill in that sense. Let us hope that common sense prevails, and after the elections, things will be better. The parliament is crucial, yes. As I've told you, in 50 years, I've seen all kinds of parliaments. I've seen all kinds of bicameral parliaments as well. We had a Senate once upon a time. We had a military parliament as well. So I've been through all those. I've lived through all those. And yes, the Turkish parliament is now much better than before, but some form of reformation is needed also in the parliamentary system. I mean, we have set up a system. Now the bricks are going to fall to place, and we are going to do the fine tuning, and that also is valid for the Turkish parliament. But as I said, if people mean well, the results will be good. If not, if this kind of backbiting and fight and so on continues, this parliament may be short-lived. Maybe Turkey will have to have another election in the future, because you cannot sustain a system where everybody is at each other's throats. So there is that kind of a issue as well.
Thank you very much. And another question, Professor Duran. Last week we talked about this, but I just want to repeat my question if you have any change of heart in regards to the factors that will affect the voter preferences in the election. So when a Turkish voter went to a ballot box and decided to vote for a party, what are the most significant 3 issues that he will pay attention to? What do you expect would be on top of that list?
Well, Kılıç, actually, my answer did not change, but I think the priorities are somehow reshuffled. I mean, I mentioned before economic problems, especially in the metropolitan areas, was important. But now, the most important issue, maybe far away from other 2, is this PKK and FETÖ support to Kilicdaroglu. This created a national sentiment and also fear of the survival of the republic in the followers of President Erdogan. And also nationalist circles are dealing with this threat to very existence of Turkey, because all political issues, but significant issues are brought into the agenda, and including the self-government in the southeast of Turkey by HDP. So with the, of course, support of PKK militants. So this fear is the most important determinant in these for May 14 elections. And other issues, of course, personalities, President Erdogan's 2-decade experience, and also Kilicdaroglu's ability to bring different factions of opposition together against Erdogan is very important. And also foreign policy issue, not just in terms of whether pro-Western or not. It's about the position of Turkey. I mean, the international position of Turkey, whether Turkey will be a major actor in shaping regional and global issues, or Turkey will be a rather passive actor, but at the same time challenging Russia in those issues of Ukraine and other regional problems. So these are the related issues that I expect that if there is second round, nationalism issue will be the most prominent one for the voters. Turkish nationalists versus Kurdish nationalist leftist voters.
Thank you very much, Professor Duran. Mr. Çevik, what do you think will be the priorities that would determine the voter preference in Turkish elections?
Well, Professor Duran summed up the actual picture. That's quite satisfying. But the idea is this. Yes, the economic problems are very critical, and in the voters' mind, they are decision makers. It's vital that Turkey's economy is put on a course where the people can enjoy much better wealth, and people expect whoever comes to power to bring them out of the economic problems. Everybody realizes that there are some inborn problems in the Turkish economy, but there's also the effects of the catastrophic corona situation, plus the COVID situation, plus what it's done to the world economy. But besides that, what the war in Ukraine has brought to the world economy as well, the problems that created. So all these brought together, yes, the Turkish people also feel that somebody has to come and save them out of this economic debacle. However, as Professor Duran pointed out very subtly, it is true that the Turkish people are now, in the past 2 weeks or so, things have suddenly changed. People are seeing this hate talk against Erdogan and his people, and the people who felt the economy was very important and some change was needed, suddenly are starting to say, look, the boss did fine until now. We have debts, we all have mortgages to pay and so on. And maybe the best man to bring us out of all this is again Erdogan, not the Kilicdaroglu and his mumbo jumbo team, because the mumbo jumbo team cannot bring their acts together to bring us out of this economic situation. However, they also feel that this hate talk has been so severe that people are now again assembling around Erdogan, saying, we will not let the boss be crushed by these people. And the huge turnouts in the rallies, political rally crowds, which I've never seen. I mean, the Istanbul thing was incredible. The Ankara scene was incredible. I've been to the Ankara townships yesterday with the president. I was shell-shocked. That was practically an eye-opener for me. So people are ganging up and saying, look, this is our man. We brought him there for 20 years. He served us well most of the time. Now we're not going to allow you to crush this guy. So you have that situation. Plus, besides all that, you really have the people, again, resent that outside pressure is being built up on Turkey. The voters reject that kind of outside pressures. But as Duran pointed out, on one side you have the PKK saying we support the People's Coalition and we support Kilicdaroglu. He's going to free Abdullah Öcalan. He's going to free Demirtas. He's going to bring the people down from the mountains and so on and so forth. And he will legalize the terrorists. All these has been a huge eye-opener, not only for the right-wing people in Turkey, but also for the people who are supporting Kilicdaroglu or who had switched to Kilicdaroglu. And then people see that the Fethullah Gülen criminal gang is also working very hard to see Erdogan go. And they all say, if these guys are after Erdogan, then Erdogan must be right. And they're seeing all the dirty stuff that they're doing, like forcing Muharrem İnce to quit as candidate. All these brought together are affecting the voter preferences in Turkey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Çevik. Mr. Duran, there is a question for you by Ali Güngör. He said, first, I expect a landslide victory for President Erdogan Sunday night by a wider margin. If Erdogan wins, do you expect an uprising by opposition forces led by the principal loser of presidential election, Mr. Kilicdaroglu, and his allies, including HDP?
A good question. I might ask another one. If Erdogan loses, could there be somehow resistance to change the power, change the government? Two questions are so much asked in the actually in the Western media, but I believe that Turkish democracy is strong enough, is consolidated enough to accept the results of the May 14 elections on both sides. Of course, we have seen in this electoral process so much discussion, so much polemics, and so much politicization. And this led to candidates and parties to raise their criticism against each other, even in very harsh terms. But still, all parties and candidates know that the only power that will decide the future of Turkey is the voters. That's why I don't think that nobody would try to make some anti-democratic or chaotic initiatives that will be against them in the future, in the near future. So if Erdogan wins with a landslide victory, then the opposition has to accept this, because the Turkish president is still the incumbent one and has the authority and also has the power of the institutions. So this kind of activism, militant activism, would be detrimental to the position of the opposition. Well, it depends at the same time on the results of the parliament. I mean, if there is a balance for the opposition in the parliament, but they lost the presidency, this is something else. Well, if there is a landslide victory for President Erdogan, I don't expect this kind of problem. But if the victory is not a landslide victory, is just with some margins, then the opposition would question that, and I expect that they will make so much accusations. But again, the final decision would be made by Turkish High Council of Elections. So I expect that in spite of all the accusations and discussions and polemics, stability, security, and democracy will triumph over Turkey.
Mr. Çevik, the same question.
Well, Mr. Duran said the right thing, of course. There's also the other side of the coin. If by any chance Erdogan loses, he will just give up power, and that's that. I don't think he will challenge anything, and I don't think he will make an issue of not losing his seat. But on the other side, yes, the opposition, as Mr. Duran points out, if there's a landslide, nobody will talk. If there's a 5% difference, Erdogan gets 55%, nobody will talk. But if there's a razor-thin win by Erdogan, then yes, there will be a lot of noise, especially in the social media and all over the place. But at the end of the day, the Turkish voters are very well behaved. They've always proven that common sense prevails and everybody accepts the results. If they don't, you see, if they don't, then the Turkish voters really teach people big lessons. For instance, AK Party did not like the Istanbul election results. They contested it. The Istanbul mayor was elected by a very few, a small margin as mayor. But when AK Party contested the elections, the Istanbul mayor got a huge majority because the people said, look, we're here, we've given the verdict, now you listen to our verdict or else this is what you get. So you get that kind of a reaction, but the reaction comes from the voter, from the ballot box, not from politicians or anybody else. And as Mr. Duran points out, Turkey has an autonomous and independent, well-placed Supreme Elections Board. That is the big court of Turkey regarding elections. Their verdict is final. Nobody can contest it. The constitutional court can't contest it. We have these special supreme judges which deal with elections. And once the verdict is done, that's done. That's finished. It's over. Everybody has to accept the result.
Thank you very much. And we have only 3 minutes left, actually. And I have one more question. Robert Friedman is asking, is there any truth to the claim that the Russians have interfered in the Turkish election? I know, Professor Duran, you mentioned this slightly in your introductory remarks. Tell us a little bit how you assess this claim by Kemal Kilicdaroglu.
Well, Kilicdaroglu claimed that there is a deep fake issue by the Russian sources, but it was denied by Kremlin, by the spokesperson of Kremlin. And also, President Erdogan criticized this accusation against Russia. So there is no clear evidence, proof about that, but Kilicdaroglu makes somehow unproven claims about the electoral process. So it's a kind of propaganda. It seems that it's a kind of propaganda in the electoral process. So as far as I know, there is no clear evidence to that.
Mr. Çevik?
There's no. I don't think the Russians are interfering in anything. I'm not a pro-Russian person. I'm a pro-Western person. I've been known as a pro-Western person all my life, and actually quite a pro-American person. But I see more interference from the West than from the Russians. I think that should be looked into, and I think the prosecutors should look into how Western powers are trying to manipulate Turkish elections.
Thank you very much, Mr. Çevik. And thank you for both Professor Duran and Mr. Çevik, and thanks for all the participants from our social media and through Zoom. And we will have elections now on Sunday in Turkey. And on Monday morning, we will have another panel discussing the outcomes of this election and evaluating election results. And hope to see you on Monday. And good luck for Turkey.
Thank you, Kılıç.
Thank you. God bless.